Who's the author?
That's
the authorship
Representative
speech?
Mastro DeCasa, school code B111. Sorry for all the confusion, guys.
That's fine.
You said Master DeCasa?
Yeah, MASTRO DICASA. That's the leader of my judge and presiding officer. In the summer of 2010, when the Arab Spring first took place, we didn't realize how long this process was going to be drawn out. Over the past couple of months, we've seen things take a turn for the worse, and the Arab Spring movement of promoting democracy has only been exacerbated. However, it isn't a lost hope. With increased United States effort, the Arab Spring can move in the right direction. And this is exactly why this issue needs to be promulgated, and I affirm today's legislation. The first reason why I affirm today's legislation is because it's going to increase the efficiency of the operation within Syria. This is true because when looking over the past couple of months, we've seen things only go awry. The United States sent in the world's #1 diplomat, Kofi Annan, to help sort things out in Syria. However, this was a failure. Kofi Annan reported that Syria is a lost hope, and they have no chance in progressing. However, this is because diplomatic relationships and working with a corrupt leader such as Bashar al-Assad just isn't going to cut it. In fact, we need to improve upon our relationships by implementing hard power. We need military operations to take place in Syria if we ever want peace and prosperity to ensue. Bashar al-Assad is not going to change, and his opinions on how to change Syria are not going to head in the right direction. If we want to promote democracy, sending in diplomats is not the way to go. But we must also recognize that this is time for the United States to enter Syria. This is the perfect moment for us to show that we are a leader. Over the past couple of years, many of the foreign diplomats have been explaining that the United States is no longer the power we once were. However, this is our opportunity to prove them false. As the International Crisis Group explains in August 24th of 2012, that over the past couple of years, we've seen the United States dwindle in foreign policy. However, by implementing power within Syria and rebuilding their democracy from the ground up, we can see things are going to change for the better. But not only is it going to increase efficiency, but we can also recognize that U.S. within Syria is going to stop human rights abuses. We've noticed that the government throughout Syria has been oppressing its people. Bashar al-Assad has not been a good leader, and things are only getting out of control. It is because of this that the United States needs to enter Syria to stop the human rights abuses. Over the past couple of months, from August until now, we've seen millions of people throughout Syria die on the streets due to military combat from Syria's army. However, if the United States enters this region, military power throughout Syria will come to a screeching halt. It is because the United States is in charge, will take charge of this operation. And I believe in what the power of our military can do, that I urge us to pass today's legislation, not only for the prosperity of Syria, but for the prosperity of our foreign policy initiatives. So clearly, I argue that we need to send in more military power within Syria if we want anything to progress within the next couple of months. So, it's because when looking over the past couple of months in our operation with Syria, things have been exacerbated. However, with increasing U.S. military strength throughout the region, things can take a turn for the better.
All right, time of speech is 3 minutes, 6 seconds. Questions, please rise. Representative.
If we take down Bashar al-Assad's regime, won't this create a power vacuum in Syria?
Representative.
How would sending military force affect relations with Turkey if we were to intervene in Syria?
This would not affect relationships with Turkey because all the countries throughout the Middle East for the Arab Spring movement are trying to move towards democracy, specifically Turkey as well. So if we show we're taking action to move these countries in the right direction, hopefully Turkey will follow suit and move their country towards democracy.
Representative.
Could it be possible if we intervene in Syria for there to be a Mali-Wen conflict due to the fact that we're intervening within another country?
No, because the United Nations is in place and wants to move towards democracy. However, their policies have failed, specifically when sending Kofi Annan into Syria. So by having the United States take charge, they're going to show that someone is taking the initiative to move towards democracy.
Representative.
Do we have any international backup and intervening to Syria?
No, we don't have an international backup. This is why the United States is the leader of this operation, and if taking charge, we can hopefully move things in the right direction.
Seeing no further questions, speaker may be seated. We're now in line for a speech in the mediation. Representative. Thank you, Chair.
That is it Senator or Representative?
All right.
Senator Garceau, Garceau, I believe school code CK.
How are you picking speakers?
Just random, whoever stands first.
Just give me a nod or any indication when ready. Having already won war, withdrawing troops from one war in the Middle East, we can't affirm today's legislation and ultimately start another war. And it's because if we affirm, this will only lead up as a war, we must negate. Now the first reason as to why we must negate today's legislation is because in contrast to Senator Casa, if we intervene, it will only inflame the situation in Syria. Now this is true because it will actually it will inflame the Assad regime. Now we can look to an Economist article written on September 14, 2012, that states that Syria has one of the largest stockpile of chemical weapons. Now this will only cause major problems, and one of these extreme problems is that Assad would use these chemical weapons against his own civilians if his regime is threatened. And Mr. Assad will see us intervening as a threat, so if we do intervene, there will actually be a threat to this Assad regime, and they will start using these chemical weapons not only against their own citizens, but against us. Ladies and gentlemen, this will only lead to a full-blown nuclear war or a chemical war. You will see the dying of mass civilizations. You will see the dying of mass populations. And it's because I don't want to see millions upon millions of people dying that we must negate today's legislation. Furthermore, we must negate is because by affirming, you will make Syria a much more dangerous place. Now this is true because you will create a power vacuum if we intervene. And my point is proven by a book written by Fernand Braudel called Capitalism and Material Life that states that the power vacuum can be best exampled when we look towards the situation in Somalia. With no centralized government or president exercising control over Somalia, we can see that this has turned into a war-ravaged nation. And it is in fact the 5th poorest country in the entire world. And if we intervene and remove Mr. Assad, other groups, such as the Mujahideen, a terrorist group, will try and take over. And now, what you have is widespread fighting for that position of power. This will only complicate matters further, and this can be prevented by the simple failing of today's legislation. So to prevent civil war and civil uprising and mass death over nuclear war, we must negate today's legislation and let the situation solve itself in Syria. Thank you.
Time to speech is 2 minutes, 40 seconds. Questioners, please rise. Representative.
Thank you. Since over the course of history, it has never happened that two nuclear-capable countries have attacked each other, what makes this the exception?
Just because the Assad regime has already proven that they will and they have the capability to use these chemical weapons.
Representative.
Thank you. Is it Senator or Representative? Senator. Alright. Do you suppose that if we intervene in this Syrian civil war, that the violence will spill over into neighboring countries?
I think that it will actually spill over into neighboring countries, which will complicate matters even further.
Thank you.
Is the situation in Syria enough to risk American lives that have already suffered through several wars that we've gone through?
Not at all.
How would you define, what type of support could we give if we did intervene?
Could you
Please your face.
Would intervening only mean military power, or could we also use soft powers?
Well, either way, they would see this as a threat to the regime, just because we would be intervening in some sort of way.
Thank you.
How long did it take the United States military forces to go into Libya and invade Libya?
I'm not exactly sure of that, so sorry.
Seeing no further questioners, you can be seated.
I think the chair.
We're now in line for a speaking activation. Representative Bonner.
Thank you. Point of reference,